Hi everyone, imagine a world where we weren't the only humans walking the earth. Long ago, our planet was home to many different kinds of humans. Some were stronger, some were taller, and some looked quite different from us. But over time, one group rose above all the others us. Homo sapiens. At first, we were small and fragile. We had no claws, no thick fur, and no great strength. But we had something else. We had imagination, curiosity, and the power to share stories. When we hunted, we worked together. When we faced challenges, we found clever ways to solve them. Bit by bit, we spread across the globe. We crossed deserts, mountains, and oceans. We painted on cave walls, invented tools, and even learned how to control fire. Fire wasn't just warmth and light. It was the spark of a new way of living. Our rise wasn't easy. We faced ice ages, fierce animals, and even rival human species. But our greatest weapon was our ability to connect with one another. We formed tribes, built villages, and dreamed of futures bigger than ourselves. Step by step, century by century, we shaped the world. We planted seeds and grew food instead of chasing it. We built cities that glittered with lights, crafted music and art, and gazed at the stars wondering what lay beyond. Today, we stand as the only surviving humans, but we carry within us the stories of all who came before. Our dazzling rise wasn't just about survival. It was about imagination, cooperation, and the unstoppable drive to ask, what's next? And maybe, just maybe, our greatest chapter is still waiting to be written. Long ago, the Earth was not only home to us, but to many different kinds of humans. We often imagine ourselves as the only species to ever exist in this form, but the truth is much more fascinating. The story of humanity is not a story of one, but of many. For thousands of years, different human species walked the earth side by side, sharing landscapes, rivers, caves, and challenges. We, Homo sapiens, were just one among them. There were others like Homo neanderthalensis, commonly known as the Neanderthals, who were strong, sturdy, and perfectly adapted to the icy and rugged climates of Ice Age Europe. Their bodies were powerful, their muscles built for survival, and their culture included tool-making and even art. There were also species like Homo erectus, who had existed long before us, and were among the first to master the use of fire and tools. Then there was Homo floresiensis, sometimes called the Hobbit, for its tiny size, who lived on islands far away. And of course, Homo heidelbergensis, Denisovans, and more, each with their unique traits and adaptations. Imagine a time when different kinds of humans could have looked across a plain and seen each other in the distance. Each species had its own way of life, its own skills, and its own place in the ecosystem. We often think of human evolution as a straight line, moving step by step from primitive to modern. But in reality, it was more like a tree with many branches growing at once, some reaching upward, some breaking off, and some continuing in unexpected directions. Homo sapiens was only one branch of this incredible tree. The others lived, thrived, and adapted just as much as we did. And for a long time, there was no clear sign that our branch would be the one to flourish above all the rest. Our ancestors were not always the strongest or the toughest. In fact, compared to Neanderthals, we were smaller and less muscular. Compared to Homo erectus, we were not the earliest pioneers of tool-making or fire. But what set us apart was how we connected, communicated, and imagined. We lived during the same time as these other species, sharing the earth for tens of thousands of years. Archaeological evidence shows that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interacted, sometimes even interbreeding, leaving genetic traces in many modern humans today. The Denisovans, too, contributed to our DNA, especially in populations from Asia and Oceania. This means that inside us, fragments of these ancient humans are still alive, woven into our very being. It is important to picture the world during that time. Europe, for example, was home to Neanderthals long before Homo sapiens arrived. They hunted large animals, survived freezing winters, and had a culture of their own. In the caves of Spain and France, evidence suggests they painted symbols on walls, buried their dead with care, and may have shared stories of their own. In Asia, Denisovans thrived, though much of what we know comes from genetic evidence and a few fragments of bones. In Africa, Homo sapiens began their journey, evolving around 200 years ago before spreading outward into new lands. As we spread, the world must have felt crowded with possibilities. Meeting another human that looked almost like us, but not exactly, would have been a strange and powerful experience. Did they see us as competitors, as threats, or as potential allies? Did we trade ideas, share skills, or fight for survival? The archaeological record gives us glimpses, but the full story is lost to time. What we know for certain is that for a long stretch of history, the Earth was not a stage for a single species, but a shared arena where many types of humans tried to survive, adapt, and thrive. Eventually, one by one, these other humans disappeared. The Neanderthals vanished around 40,000 years ago. The Denisovans faded into mystery, their legacy surviving only in our genes. Homo floresiensis survived until about 50,000 years ago on their island home. Homo erectus, after a long history of survival, finally disappeared. What remained was us, Homo sapiens, carrying forward the torch of humanity. But before that moment, before our species stood alone, there was a long, dazzling age when we were just one among many, and our planet was filled with a richness of human diversity unlike anything we see today. When we think about survival, it is easy to imagine sharp weapons, strong muscles, or fast reflexes as the keys to success. But for Homo sapiens, the real secret to survival was not brute strength or even speed. It was the mind. Our imagination, our ability to work together, and our gift for telling stories became the tools that allowed us to thrive in a world full of dangers, challenges, and rivals. Unlike other creatures, we could think beyond the present moment. We could plan, picture what might happen tomorrow, and prepare for it. When facing a hunt, we didn't rely only on individual courage. Instead, we imagined strategies, set traps, and worked together in ways that multiplied our chances. This kind of thinking turned weakness into strength. Imagination gave us the ability to see things that did not yet exist. Before a tool was shaped, it was first an idea in someone's mind. Before a hunt was carried out, it was first a vision of how it might unfold. A spear or an axe was not just an object. It was the result of imagination taking shape in the real world. This power allowed Homo sapiens to create not only tools, but also symbols, art, and rituals. Cave paintings, carvings, and ornaments were not necessary for immediate survival, yet they reveal how imagination shaped our world. These acts were more than decoration. They were ways of sharing meaning, connecting with one another, and strengthening the bonds that made survival possible. Cooperation was equally vital. One human alone could not bring down a mammoth or survive an attack from wild predators, but together, a group could achieve incredible things. Cooperation meant more than just hunting as a team. It meant raising children as a community, sharing food when someone was weak, and protecting one another against threats. These actions built trust, and trust created stronger groups. Other species of humans, like Neanderthals, also cooperated, but Homo sapiens took this further by developing complex social networks. We didn't only rely on family or immediate groups. We built connections with strangers, forming alliances that extended far beyond small tribes. This ability to expand cooperation was one of the keys to our survival in difficult environments. Storytelling played an extraordinary role in this process. Through stories, knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. Instead of each person learning through trial and error, important lessons could be shared and remembered. Stories taught how to find food, how to track animals, and how to avoid dangers. But storytelling also did something even greater. It created shared beliefs, a group that believed in the same story, whether about ancestors, spirits, or the meaning of the stars, had a powerful bond. These shared ideas made cooperation possible on a much larger scale. A tribe could unite not just because of blood relations, but because of the stories they told and believed together. The power of imagination, cooperation, and storytelling can be seen in the way Homo sapiens spread across the globe. When we entered new lands, we faced unfamiliar animals, strange climates, and unknown dangers. Yet, instead of being defeated by these challenges, we adapted. We could imagine solutions before problems destroyed us. We could cooperate to make use of new resources. We could tell stories that gave meaning to change and helped us remember what worked. This flexible way of surviving allowed us to move from Africa into deserts, forests, icy plains, and islands. No other human species spread so widely or adapted so creatively. Survival was never only about food and shelter. It was about belonging. A person alone was vulnerable, but a person who belonged to a group, who shared its stories, and who could imagine a shared future was much stronger. The ability to belong to something bigger than oneself gave Homo sapiens an edge that no other human species possessed to the same degree. Through imagination, we could picture a future that hadn't yet happened. Through cooperation, we could make that future possible. Through storytelling, we could convince others to believe in it and join us. These three forces combined to lift us above the struggles of everyday survival and gave us the ability to dream of more than just living through the day. Among the many turning points in the journey of Homo sapiens, one of the most powerful was the mastery of fire and the development of tools. These discoveries were not simply conveniences. They transformed the very nature of human life and survival. Fire, once a force of danger that inspired fear, became a tool that could be controlled, nurtured, and used in countless ways. To early humans, the ability to keep a flame alive meant warmth in freezing nights, protection from wild predators, and the chance to cook food that would otherwise be tough, unsafe, or impossible to eat. Cooking softened meat, released more energy from plants, and changed diets forever. This new way of eating helped brains grow stronger and gave bodies more energy, fueling not only survival but imagination and culture. Fire became a companion, something humans gathered around for safety, for warmth, and for the first sparks of storytelling in the flickering light. The mastery of fire also reshaped time itself. Before fire, night was a wall that limited movement and activity. Darkness forced early humans into rest and caution, but with fire, the night opened up. It became a time of gathering, sharing, and planning. Around the flames, humans built communities. Firelight made space for conversations, rituals, and stories. It gave security to groups traveling through dangerous lands and allowed them to settle in new places that once seemed unlivable. This control over fire was more than physical survival. It was the creation of a new rhythm of life. The cycle of day and night no longer trapped humans because fire extended the day and gave new meaning to the night. While fire transformed how humans lived, tools transformed what humans could do. The earliest tools were simple: sharp stones for cutting, bones used for digging, sticks sharpened into points for hunting. These basic objects carried enormous power because they extended human abilities far beyond what nature had given. A sharp stone made hands capable of cutting through animal hides. A wooden spear turned fragile humans into hunters capable of taking down large animals. Tools were not just objects of survival, they were the beginning of human creativity made real. Every improvement in tools meant a step forward in survival, but also a step forward in imagination, because each new design began first as an idea. As time passed, tools grew more complex. Stone flakes became carefully crafted blades. Spears were improved with fire-hardened tips. Eventually, humans invented bows and arrows, fishing hooks, needles made from bone, and ornaments that showed a desire not only to survive but to express. The ability to make and improve tools spread knowledge within groups and across generations. Each child who watched an elder chip stone learned not only the skill, but also the patience, technique, and imagination behind it. Tools allowed humans to take control of their environments in ways no other species could. Where other animals adapted slowly through physical evolution, Homo sapiens adapted quickly by creating new tools. changing their world with their own hands. The connection between fire and tools was deep. Fire made it possible to shape tools in new ways, such as hardening wooden spear tips or later heating materials that would one day become metal. Fire gave humans the ability to alter substances, to transform raw material into something entirely different. This was the beginning of technology, the understanding that the world could be changed and reshaped through knowledge and practice. Fire also provided a defense for these tools, keeping predators at a distance and allowing humans to focus on their crafts without constant fear. The relationship between fire, tools, and imagination built a foundation for human progress that would continue to grow for thousands of years. These advancements also changed human communities. With better tools, hunting became more efficient and food supplies more reliable. With fire, cooking meant fewer diseases and stronger bodies. These changes led to larger groups, longer lives, and more complex social structures. Around fires, humans could share not only food, but also experiences, stories, and ideas. With tools, they could pass on knowledge, shaping identities and cultures. Both fire and tools became symbols of what made Homo sapiens different from other species. The ability to imagine a possibility, to create something new, and to use it to transform the world. The mastery of fire and the crafting of tools were not just discoveries. They were sparks that lit the way forward, shaping the path that would carry our species to new horizons. From the earliest moments of human history, the journey from small tribes to vast cities marked one of the greatest transformations of Homo sapiens. At first, humans lived in small groups, bound by blood ties and survival needs. These tribes depended on one another for hunting, gathering, and protection. Life was simple, but also fragile. Every day was a balance between hunger and abundance, safety and danger. Yet within these small groups, the seeds of culture began to grow. People shared songs, dances, and rituals that gave meaning to their lives. They painted on cave walls, not only to record what they saw, but to express what they imagined. In these early acts of creativity, culture was born, shaping identity and binding people together in ways that went beyond survival. As time passed, humans began to experiment with something new, the planting of seeds. Instead of wandering endlessly in search of food, some groups learned how to grow it. This shift from foraging to farming changed everything. Agriculture meant that people could stay in one place longer, building homes instead of temporary shelters. With farming came surplus food, and surplus food meant that not everyone had to spend their time hunting or gathering. Some could focus on other skills, like making pottery, weaving cloth, or crafting more advanced tools. Farming created stability, but it also gave rise to complexity. Villages grew, and with them grew traditions, rituals, and beliefs that formed the foundation of societies. The rise of villages marked a turning point in human culture. For the first time, groups of people lived together in permanent settlements, creating new forms of cooperation and organization. Walls were built for protection, and communal spaces became centers for gatherings and ceremonies. The sharing of labor allowed for greater accomplishments, from irrigation systems that fed crops to storage houses that protected food supplies. These developments were more than practical solutions. They shaped how humans thought of themselves and their place in the world. Belonging was no longer just about family or tribe. It expanded to include entire communities, bound by shared work and shared dreams. As villages turned into towns and towns into cities, human creativity expanded in dazzling ways. The invention of writing allowed people to record their thoughts, track trade, and preserve stories across generations. What had once been only spoken around a fire could now be passed down in symbols carved into clay or painted on papyrus. Writing connected the present to the future, allowing knowledge to grow instead of fading with memory. With writing came laws, myths, and histories that shaped the identity of entire civilizations. Art flourished alongside these developments. Sculptures, paintings, and music expressed not just survival, but the human spirit. Architecture rose from simple huts to monumental structures, temples, pyramids, and palaces that reached for the heavens. These creations were not merely functional, they were symbols of belief, ambition, and imagination. They told stories of gods, kings, and communities that sought to define their place in the cosmos. With every city that rose, culture grew richer, weaving together art, religion, and tradition into something that defined humanity in ways no other species could achieve. Civilizations also fostered new systems of exchange and communication. Trade connected people across great distances, carrying goods, ideas, and customs from one culture to another. A tool made in one land could travel hundreds of miles and inspire new inventions elsewhere. Spices, metals, fabrics, and stories all moved along these early networks, binding humanity together in an intricate web of connection. This exchange shaped languages, beliefs, and technologies, ensuring that no culture grew in isolation. As humans built larger societies, the complexity of their relationships deepened. Leadership, laws, and governance emerged to organize growing populations. With rules came justice and order, but also conflicts and struggles for power. These tensions shaped politics, philosophy, and the questions of how people should live together. In every city, from Mesopotamia to the Nile, from the Indus Valley to the Americas, humans experimented with new forms of society, creating models that would echo throughout history. The journey from tribes to cities was not just about survival. It was about identity. In small tribes, identity was tied to kinship and immediate survival. In villages, it became about cooperation and shared traditions. In cities, it expanded further to include language, religion, laws, and culture that connected thousands, even millions of people. This expansion of identity shaped what it meant to be human, giving rise to civilizations that created wonders still admired today. From the earliest seeds planted in the soil to the glowing lights of ancient cities, Homo sapiens carried forward the imagination, cooperation, and creativity that made this dazzling rise possible. The story of Homo sapiens is not only about what we have achieved in the past, but also about the unshakable drive that pushes us forward. From the very beginning, curiosity was at the heart of our survival. When our ancestors first looked at a new horizon, they did not only see danger, they saw possibility. This desire to know, to explore, and to push beyond boundaries has defined us as a species. Curiosity was what led small groups of humans to leave the familiar landscapes of Africa and venture into deserts, mountains, and frozen plains. It was what allowed them to survive in places no other human species had managed to thrive. Even when challenges threatened to overwhelm them, they continued moving, adapting, and asking what lay beyond the next river or the next stretch of land. This drive to search for what comes next shaped every step of human progress. Curiosity led to the creation of tools, but it was imagination that made those tools better with each generation. It was curiosity that made humans study the stars, follow the migrations of animals, and experiment with seeds until farming was discovered. Each question asked, why, how, what if, pushed humanity to uncover answers that changed the way people lived. This constant cycle of questioning and discovering created knowledge that was passed down, preserved and expanded upon, turning survival into growth and growth into civilization. Even in the earliest days, humans were not content with simply living day by day. They painted stories on cave walls that no one needed to paint. They carved figures and made ornaments that were not required for hunting or eating. These acts showed something greater, a need to imagine, to create, and to leave behind evidence of thought. Curiosity did not only feed the body, it fed the spirit. Through art, music, and storytelling, humans began to ask questions about meaning, about existence, and about what lies beyond life itself. These questions shaped religions, philosophies, and cultures that gave purpose to communities and strength to civilizations. As societies grew, curiosity pushed humans to expand their reach even further. They built ships that sailed across oceans, wheels that carried them across continents, and systems of writing that preserved ideas across centuries. Trade routes stretched from one end of the world to the other, carrying not only goods but also knowledge. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy all emerged from the desire to explain the unknown. Each discovery led to another, each answer sparked new questions, and the cycle of exploration never ended. Humans were no longer limited to their local surroundings. Their minds stretched outward, imagining possibilities that seemed impossible at first, but eventually became reality. The drive for what's next was not always easy. It brought conflict, competition, and struggles for power. Civilizations rose and fell, often because of the same curiosity and ambition that built them. Yet even in times of collapse, knowledge was preserved, rediscovered, and rebuilt. Humans carried forward ideas that outlived kingdoms and empires. Libraries, temples, and schools became symbols of this endless search for understanding. People debated, questioned, and dreamed of worlds that had not yet been seen. With every step forward, the scale of curiosity expanded. From the first seeds planted in the ground to the construction of monumental cities, from the observation of stars in the night sky to the invention of telescopes that revealed galaxies, humans continued to stretch the limits of what they knew. The same imagination that once sparked fire now sought to uncover the mysteries of the universe itself. Each generation inherited not only the tools and knowledge of the past, but also the unspoken challenge to go further, to discover more, and to ask new questions. Curiosity also shaped the way humans related to one another. It was not enough to live within one's own tribe or city. People sought to understand those who were different from them. They traded stories, exchanged beliefs, and combined ideas from faraway lands. This blending of knowledge and culture made societies richer and stronger. It also revealed that the search for meaning and progress was not limited to one group or one place, but shared by all of humanity. Across the globe, different civilizations built their own answers to the same questions, showing that curiosity was universal. The history of Homo sapiens is filled with struggles, triumphs, and transformations, but at the core lies this unstoppable drive. Each new step opened the way for another, and each generation added to the legacy of exploration and imagination. The need to ask what lies beyond, to search for what's next, has always been part of who we are, guiding us from the smallest beginnings to the heights of culture, science, and discovery.